the energy that they put out and what they produce for the city and for people, and like all the resources that they're creating just by being living. Like, I'm a tree advocate. I love trees, and I support the growth of these big trees. Where I come into play is when they have to be taken down.
Hey guys, what is happening? Welcome back to Your Forest. I'm Matthew Kristoff. And I've got kind of departure from the scientific side of things today. Usually I offer up like a researcher or a forest practitioner or something like that. And I've brought on somebody. I met him through a friend of a friend. He's a really unique dude in the city of Edmonton, at least. And he's been taking urban trees, so trees from urban environments from within the city here and surrounding area, and trees that people wanted removed, whether they were going to fall down, they were getting too big, needed to be removed to save a foundation or X, Y, and Z. Maybe there's infill going in or something like that. So trees that needed to be removed regardless. And he's getting those trees, getting the wood from the arborist and he's milling it, turning it all into live edge wood. So live edge is basically you just take the tree and you just cut it into like a 2 or 3 inch slab, and you leave the edge exactly how it is. You don't square it off. So it's got all the branches and all the burls and all the character and gnarliness in it. It's really, really cool looking. He's doing that with wood from people's backyards. So someone will call him up and they'll say, I need this, or whatever. An arborist will call him up and say they removed this tree from someone's backyard, and that person might want it turned into a table or something like that, and he can do the milling for that. So it's really, really cool. People end up having stuff from their backyard in their house. It's pretty awesome. Really, really unique dude. His name is Eric Jensen. He grew up just north of the city here. He really, really is passionate about his work. He really loves trees and the forest and the whole nature of the environment, right? He's really, really, really in tune with his passion and his love, and that's trees. After the podcast, even, we talked at length about the importance of forest values in people's lives. He really instilled in me his love for trees and allowing them to have a second life as a part in people's homes and stuff like that. So it was a really, really interesting podcast. He really loves his work. He does awesome jobs. He's got contacts with a bunch of different contractors, carpenters and stuff like that, people that can turn that wood or those slabs into art or into a table or into a mantelpiece and that kind of stuff. And like I said, it's all local. So really cool guy. I really enjoyed our conversation. We talked a lot about his business. It's called Relic Woodworks, and you can check him out at relicwoodworks.ca. He's got Instagram and Facebook and all that stuff too. Just a down-to-earth guy. Really, really like talking to him. Really got along with him. Hunter, fisherman, all that stuff. So he spent his whole life growing up in the bush, and he just wanted to follow his passion and his dream, and it was to give trees a second life, right? As artwork in people's homes. So it was really, really cool. Yeah, he really believes in his product, and because of that, he's one of the only people in this business that offers a warranty on his work. So most people, they'll say, no, the product is as is, but he's already honored 2 warranties in the 4 years he's been doing this. People come back and say, hey, the wood warped or cracked or whatever, and he'll take care of it, right? So he wants people to be happy with the product they get, and he believes in it wholeheartedly. So if you need live edge wood or something like that, I definitely advise checking out Relic Woodworks. Really cool guy. I think you guys are really going to enjoy talking to him. I know I did. We talked for like 2.5 hours in total. I only recorded like an hour of it. I stopped recording and then we started talking about all kinds of different stuff, and it was all fascinating. I loved it all. So that's Eric. Coming up right in a second, we have 3 sponsors. That's the Forest Resource Improvement Association of Alberta. Thanks a lot. Couldn't do this without you guys. Greenlink Forestry. Also couldn't do this without Greenlink. They've supported me from the very beginning. Thanks so much. and also Damaged Timber. Damaged Timber is an apparel company right out of Edmonton here. He's making clothes, hats, toques, stuff like that, sweaters, and he's giving back to the environmental community by donating 10% of all his sales goes towards a bursary or a scholarship. I'm not sure what he's calling it yet, for environmental students. So that's really cool. If you want to support something like that, go to damagedtimber.com, punch in Your Forest 10 at checkout, get 10% off. And yeah, that's good. I'm really excited. I hope you guys like this one. Like I said, it's a departure from what we previously usually do, I guess. As far as science and stuff, it's more the talking about milling and some of the challenges with acquiring wood and turning it into something, and yeah, a little bit of our own philosophies about life and stuff, but it's always mixed in there, right? So yeah, I think you guys are really gonna love it. And without any further screwing around, here we go. So yeah, let's just start off by explaining where we're at and what it is you do here. So what is this place?
So this is our showroom. Actually, this is the showroom of Relic Woodworks. This is where we display some of the big, beautiful wood that we get from the urban forest here in Edmonton.
Yeah. No, it's a pretty sweet spot. You got everything from elm to willow to ash and all over the map, right? So it's all these really character type woods and stuff like that. So let's talk about just a little bit. Get into how you got what it is you do, what Relic Woodworks is, what you do, how you got into it, why it's important to you. Just
okay.
Doesn't have to be in that order. I'm just trying to get the ball rolling.
I think
where's a good place to start? You tell me.
Start a little bit with what Relic Woodworks is, and then how I got into it. So Relic Woodworks is a urban log salvage company. So it's basically a company that I developed just following my passion, and basically what I do is I salvage the residential trees in the city that are coming down for different reasons. In the city we're always encountering reasons for these trees to have to come down, and a lot of the older trees are coming to the end of their lives. They're getting we're getting bigger windstorms and stuff now, so there's a lot of dangers with some of these trees, infill, that sort of stuff. So, I just couldn't stand seeing these big trees go to waste. So,
so what were they doing with them, pre you? What was going on with the wood?
So in Edmonton, pretty much, as far as I knew, most people, most arborists and stuff, when they come in, they're chopping the trees down and they're bucking them up and chucking them out.
Yeah.
There was the odd guy floating around who would, have a little Alaska mill or something, a little bit of a hobbyist.
Yep.
But for the most part,
they wouldn't make firewood out of it, or
firewood. I guess so. A lot of trees, I guess, get turned into firewood,
or but chip it up for gardens and stuff.
Chip it up, yeah. But I'd say a lot of them get bucked up and thrown into the dump. So
into the dump, really? I never would have thought that someone would look at a piece of wood, especially an arborist who deals with it all the time, and think oh, this is useless.
Yeah,
it's just weird.
Have you ever been to Clover Bar landfill?
No.
And look at the huge mountain of wood they have in there?
Oh, no. I've been to Clover Bar. I never noticed the wood, though.
Yeah, there's a huge arbor dump site there with a massive mountain of wood. And
is that the same spot where they put all the pallets and stuff? I see that one. That's a giant mountain.
Yeah, it's similar, but it's trees. And it's all branches and stuff that people are bringing in there, chips.
You think even the city would do something with that, right? It's...
Yeah, I don't exactly. I do believe that they probably end up turning it into something. I don't know if they use it in their compost facility or something.
I don't imagine they just burn it because it's unless they're using it for making electricity or something maybe. But I don't know.
Yeah. I honestly don't really know, but I know that there's the timber value wasn't being looked at.
Yeah.
So especially with the hardwoods and stuff like that. So yeah, that's kind of where I swooped in and kind of took my initiative and took action with it and started making the connections that I've made over the past 4 years. Just locating and finding a fairly steady flow of product here in Edmonton.
Yeah, no, it's pretty amazing what you have. And you're saying you got, I don't know how many pieces you've got here, probably 100 so pieces, and you said you've got whole warehouses full of it, right? So it seems like the product just keeps coming. That's awesome.
Yeah, it's something that I've been pretty passionate about, and I do have I do have a pretty good selection now of over 14, 15 species here that we salvage from Edmonton. Some exotic, I guess, and some are invasive species, and then also some native species as well.
Yeah.
That we have, in our showroom here and in our inventory.
Yeah. So I was thinking, trying to think of a good way to do this. Maybe explain from start to finish kind of how it works out. Like, do you have arborists that work for you, or do you have arborists that just know you and they sell you the wood, or do you pick it up yourself and all? Like, how does all this? Because I think there's a lot of people that are wondering about that, right? Because they got trees that get cut down and the arborists come pick it up and they don't know what happens with it. So I'm just curious how that situation looks, just briefly.
So I offer a service. I offer a log pickup service here in the city. So I work with quite a few arborists and infill companies and construction companies and stuff like that. So I offer them my service at the end of the day. So they don't have to deal with the big wood, and I come in and I definitely do pay for some of the big trees.
Yeah.
But also my service is is a benefit to them as well. They don't have to deal with the big stuff. They don't have to buck it up.
Right.
And it kind of gives them a little bit of a greener feel as well, knowing that there's something actually going to happen with the lumber.
So they just pick it up, so you don't have to, you're not paying for it or anything then.
For the most part.
You just pay for the pickup most of the time.
Yeah,
okay.
Yeah.
Well, it makes sense. I guess if they're just tossing it and they're just paying for the or the disposal of it, then why would they not put it towards something sustainable, right?
Totally.
Yeah. So how did you first get into this kind of work? It's a unique work. I mean, because there's no one else that I know of in the city. You were saying there's a few other places like in other cities that do this kind of stuff, but you're kind of the first one to break ground here in Edmonton to start using urban trees to make whatever, right?
Yeah. So I've always been into woodworking and being creative, being artsy and stuff like that. And I always had a passion for live edge wood. Every time I see live edge wood, it's always something that drew me to it. And my dad and his father built a really awesome California redwood fire table or a coffee table years ago. My dad brought a few pieces back from California and they created a table. So I've always had that in the parents' home for kind of an inspiration to me. So I always see it. We used it daily, and I always knew I wanted to work with live edge wood.
Yeah.
So kind of as my life continued, I guess I could give you a little background on how I got here.
Definitely, let's do it.
So starting off, I was never really the best in school, right? Wasn't really,
as were most of us.
Yeah, wasn't really the best way. The learning. I couldn't really learn the way they were teaching me in school. But I was always really great doer. I was really good thinker. I could.
Hey man, I have a university degree. Doesn't mean I did well in university.
Yeah,
you can skate by at a 60%.
Good for you. I sometimes I regret not staying in school longer. But anyways. Grade 9 was the last year of my school. I did a little bit of homeschooling after that, but I was just more of a action-oriented fella. So I just started working at a young age and got into beekeeping for about 12 years and slowly moved into the oil field and construction field and got into, carpentry, building stuff, building fences and stuff like that. And just kind of had a little bit of I guess I worked in the oil field in the winter and then do construction and stuff in the summer, but none of that was really feeding me. I just
that artistic process type thing.
Yeah. Totally, all my creative energy I was giving it away, and at the end of the day, I wasn't really that happy. So my passion for that live edge wood was always there, and I started, really trying to cultivate this dream that I had, and so I started focusing on it for a good couple of years. Took me to put all the ducks in a row to actually hit the ball running. So just a little bit of hard work, creating the plan and getting the the infrastructure set up so I could quit my job and just start this. And
what was your job when you did? What was the job you quit to do this?
So I was working for a developer in the city, making good money.
Yeah.
And then I was working for him hourly, and then I was also doing all of his privacy fences too. So I was an added bonus kind of on the side job, building fences, making a pretty dollar, but
wasn't what you wanted.
No, at the end of the day, you're still making these plywood homes that just didn't didn't fulfill me whatsoever.
Yeah.
And just wasn't like horribly miserable or anything, but it was just wasn't feeding me. And I always used to follow. I'm always used to following my passions. I'm a pretty free thinker, and I'm a free spirit. So I just love doing what feeds me.
Yeah.
So
we need more people like that, I think, right? It's
it's a good thing to, it's a good thing to feed those desires. A lot of people, I think, they get, like we were talking earlier, they get caught up in the rat race, and they just they can lose track of who they are or the passions and dreams that they once had.
Oh, totally. I mean, I think realistically, if you find something if you can figure out a way to get paid for doing something that you love, I mean, I think that's ultimately how you make the world a better place in the end anyways, right? Just
Absolutely.
Like your little piece. If it's something you love, you're going to push that to the next step, and other people are going to love it and they'll pay for it or whatever it is.
Yeah.
And it's just like, I think what too many people are looking into, I want to change the world. I want to be the next big thing. I want to be this, I want to be that. And it's like, if you just find that thing that you love and do it long enough, eventually the world's going to change, right? Like, it's just small little pieces at a time, but it's people don't see that. They just see the success, right? And like, I want the big truck, and I want the this, and I want the that. But for someone like yourself to actually to take that leap and to maybe take that risk, right? It's a big risk, but it's also, if it's your dream, right? Like, it's going to be you just put enough work into it, it pays dividends in the end.
That's right. And it's not easy, right? Everybody, starting off in business, having no prior business experience, it's people looked at me, thought I was crazy. Like, what are you doing?
Always, yeah.
Yeah, like for the first year, especially, was very challenging, and people would offer me jobs or say, "Why don't you just go get a job? Like, what's going on?" But I just stuck with it, and I'm now. And there's no turning back, and I'm still at that stage where there's no turning back. I'm focused, and I'm really passionate about what I do.
Yeah.
I know, I'm doing a service in the city here for a lot of these old trees. Some of the oldest trees we got right out of the city are 143 years old.
Yeah.
And, these trees deserve to live on, really.
So when you say 140, are those non-native that are planted 143 years ago, or they're just like, you're just saying just trees that you've gotten in here, you're not sure what it?
Yeah, I don't know. I don't know how they got there, but
what was the one that was 143?
Manitoba maple.
Oh yeah, so there's Manitoba maple. I know you can find it in the river valleys and stuff like that. I don't think it was planted, but I think it's seeded in through somewhere. I'm not sure, but yeah. Anyways, that's cool. Yeah.
And then and then we I've gotten a bit of wood from like west and stuff. Like, we've gotten a few big white pine trees and stuff upwards of 200 years old.
Yeah.
3-4 foot plus at the base there.
Some dense wood.
Yeah. And then we got a lot, like our average big trees here are like 40 to 70 years old, I guess.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But they're big.
They're big.
Yeah. Like even those Colorado blue spruce that you're sitting over here to my right, like those are, I can see the rings from here, and I'm standing 10 feet away. Like, I could count them from here. That's how fast they grow. Yeah. I know I took what an increment bore is? It's basically a drill it's just a hand drill.
Oh, to count the rings.
So you push it, so you drill it into the tree, and then you have like a little like a sleeve that goes in and scoops out the core that you pulled out, right? And you can count the rings that way. And I did that to my the blue spruce I have in my backyard. Yeah. And I counted at breast height. I counted 47 years. And I'm like, so this tree is roughly 50 years old, and it's 17 meters tall, but it's 2.5 feet in diameter. And it's just growing like snot, right? It's insane. Yeah.
Yeah, they have great growing conditions here. A lot of times they're going to get all the water from your eaves coming down, and good soil conditions, and I think sometimes, I don't know if the cement it creates microclimates and stuff like that for these trees in the city, and it's amazing. One of the biggest spruce trees I got this year, the biggest for the age, I think it's like 35 years old, and it's close to 3 feet wide, and the growth rings are almost an inch on it. It looks like a piece. The growth rings look like California redwood or giant sequoia, I should say.
Doesn't that blow your mind to think about just the energy, the biomass, like the amount of water, the amount of like sugars created through photosynthesis, the amount of nutrients and like going into that, how much amount of oxygen created per year of something that's got an inch long like growth rate. Like the biomass of that is, like you said, 35 years and like 3.5 feet. So it's like, it's
unbelievable.
I can't even, I don't know what the math, like, but it's, it's a lot. It's a lot. It's insane.
Yeah.
Yeah. No, trees blow my mind. Actually, I listened to a podcast today. It's called Ologies, and she just brings on people talking about, different ologies. So this one was dendrology, which is trees.
Yeah.
And, listen to them talk about just the different impacts that, like, how much oxygen they create in a year and how much all that kind of stuff. It blows my mind. Yeah, it's awesome.
Yeah.
But yeah, in the city here, like, I mean, most of these things are growing like snot. It's insane.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And they're huge, right? They're literally pillars of our community, right? And like they're the energy that they put out and what they produce for the city and for people, and like all the resources that they're creating just by being living. Like, I'm a tree advocate. I love trees, and I support the growth of these big trees.
Yeah.
Where I come into play is when they have to be taken down.
Yeah.
So we deal with 100% sustainably salvaged wood. None of these trees have been cut down just to make slabs out of them. Mm-hmm. They all been sourced after the fact to actually bring them new life.
Right. Someone wants to get rid of it, and and like it has other benefits besides just the fact that you know what I mean, that you're using it afterwards and it's got new life, right? It's also like, it's more stored carbon, it's more all kinds of different added value to turning it into something.
Exactly.
Right?
Yeah.
And it's wood. It's beautiful. I was talking about that with who was I talking about that? Crispin? No, I can't remember. But yeah, just like the warmth and stuff that wood brings to you, right? Yeah. It's just an amazing piece of building material that I think could be utilized more, especially in a situation like yours, where you've got this wood that was just going to waste before, and now you can create beautiful pieces of art out of it, right?
Yep.
And someone could come here and probably request something, and you could find it, figure it out, and get them a specific piece if they wanted.
Exactly.
Even, right?
Yeah. Exactly.
Well, it's pretty incredible stuff. And like all the burls and like all the character that's in all this type of stuff is just, it's fascinating to see. Like, it just makes every little piece is unique, right?
Yeah. And that's the nice thing too, is we offer a very large range of wood products, right? So it's not just big, massive slabs that you may find like at other retail stores around.
Yeah.
You know, we right down to small little artsy projects up to 5 foot wide trees that we've salvaged out of Edmonton for boardroom tables, dining tables, that sort of stuff.
Yeah. No, it's pretty cool stuff. It's amazing. So it's what is the main product that you think is just the live edge wood itself? That's the main thing that you're selling, right? And then you have other people that you go to for construction and other kind of stuff, right?
Exactly.
Finishing wood.
Yeah. So right now we're basically focused mostly on live edge wood sales, and we do offer, you know, a little bit of modifications and stuff like that to the wood, but when it comes to like finishing the products, you know, we work closely with some local wood companies that, you know, we can offer that service as well to get products made out of your trees or out of any of the slabs that I have in drop here.
Yeah, it's pretty awesome stuff. Like, to think that you could have like a large elm or something like that you want taken down in your front yard, and you could contact you and get someone to pick it up, and you could turn it into whatever, a coffee table or a mantelpiece or whatever it is, right? I mean, there's a million uses for this stuff, and like it's totally worth it. Like, I was thinking about that big Colorado spruce in my backyard, and if like there's a potential that in a few years it might need to come down, and if it does, then I think I'll be giving you a call.
Yeah, 100%. You know, I can make it happen. We got methods to get them out of backyards and, you know, pick them over fences and stuff like that.
Yeah.
And, you know, if they're big enough to be salvaged, you know, and milled up, you know, and if somebody has any inclination to use some of that wood, you know, we do our best to work with you know, individuals to make that happen for them.
Yeah. So like, what are some of the major challenges? Because like, talking to Crispin, the urban forester for the city of Edmonton here, he seemed like it didn't seem like he really knew what was going on with as far as availability of selling wood or giving wood away, because if more people want it, then they have to create a market and have a bid and all this kind of stuff. So how did you get your foot in the door as far as getting like acquisition of these actual pieces?
So none of these are from actually the city. These are all 100% residential trees.
Right.
So, you know, working on an individual basis with individuals and homeowners and stuff like that.
Gotcha. Okay.
I'm not dealing with the corporation.
Gotcha.
I've tried to deal with them, but I've hit a brick wall every time, I guess. And I know, like, in other cities, they acquire the wood fairly simply because the city's set up protocols for that, like whether they auction the trees off or whatever.
Yeah.
But they don't. I don't really know 100% what happens to all the trees here in the city. I know that, projects and stuff like that, like with this new LRT line and stuff, they're knocking them down often, right? And a lot of these big mature trees, ash trees and the elm trees and maple trees are getting knocked down, and they're definitely not getting turned into a value-added product similar to mine.
Yeah.
I don't know exactly what's happening to them, but
yeah, I do know a guy. Well, Jordan, right? Like he was saying that he works for a guy on and off, an arborist, and they'll do a little bit of that, right? Same thing though, but it's not. I don't think it's the city trees. I'm pretty sure it's still residential
for sure. Yeah.
Stuff like he said, he cut down his buddy's birch tree, and they bought a chainsaw mill, and they cut it all up, and they got it stacked in his garage, drying for 2 years or whatever it is, right? So, let's talk about a little bit about the challenges you face as far as actually like turning this into a product. Like, I think a lot of people might look and say, "Oh, I have a tree in my backyard. I can cut it down and I can get a chainsaw mill and cut it up and it's good to go. I can turn it into something," right? But there's a lot more. I mean, kiln drying and like there's a million things that go into it. So like, what does that process look like for you?
So there's a lot more than just, a lot of people think, wow, you take these trees and you sell the slabs, you make tons of money, but it's not like that at all. So, first,
it's not a gold mine, you mean?
No, it's not. It's actually been really challenging. And, by the time you pick the trees up, I'd say about 20% of the trees that I pick up don't ever even becoming a usable, sellable product in the end.
Okay.
We deal with a lot of steel, a lot of metal in these trees, especially the big older trees.
Yeah.
From the kids pounding nails into them years ago.
Yeah. Building forts or whatever.
Yeah, building forts and tree signs and for sale signs or garage sale signs. So we hit a lot of metal in these big trees, especially the old trees. We do use a metal detector, but it only penetrates so far. Mm-hmm. So sometimes you're hitting the metal from 30 years ago, deep embedded in the trees. It's really hard to kind of tell. So that, and then some of the other challenges are, drying the wood sufficiently, without warping and cracking and that sort of thing. So there's a long process to drying the trees. So really by the time I picked a tree up and with my methods of, air drying and solar kiln drying, I'd say it's about 1.5 to 2.5 years before this product's ever even ready to, being entertained to be sold.
Yeah.
Until you get that moisture content down to where it's workable. If you'll only sell a few wet slabs until people figure out that this wood's going to go haywire once they get it in their house.
Yeah.
And, so it's been a process, I guess, learning all that stuff too, right? Everybody's always learning, right? And I'm still learning about all this stuff and different woods and how it moves and, better.
Well, every piece is different, right?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. The different tensions of the grains in the wood. And so, it's been a pretty cool experience so far, but it's not as easy as just, it's as easy it is, I guess, chainsaw milling your tree. And, I encourage people to get out there and play and, do what they love. But at the end of the day, to be a viable, marketable product, there's a little bit more that goes into it.
Of course.
Yeah.
You're what I thought was really cool on your website too, was the solar kiln. You're talking about that a bit. So what does that look like? Because so the idea is just that you have a lot of windows and stuff like that heat up the room, that just like amplify the drying process, quicken it up a little bit, rather than just having it air dry at the normal whatever ambient temperature of the air.
Exactly. Okay. Yeah. So growing up on the farm, like, we've had a lot of big greenhouses as I was young, and you grow vegetables in these greenhouses in the summer. It extends your growing period. You can start earlier, you can go longer, and you get reach these high temperatures in the sunny days. So I just started building them for wood, basically. They're just kind of modified greenhouses with, proper ventilation and stuff like that to expel the moisture. Some of them are pretty massive. Like the average is about 30 to 40 feet long.
Okay.
Not huge, like ridiculously huge structures.
Right.
But, big enough where you can get in and out of them with forklifts so that, we're stacking stuff in there.
Yeah.
8.
And you got to leave everything spaced out. It can't be laying on top of each other, right?
Exactly, yeah. So we, you sticker everything, you stack it high, and, drying the wood is the most important thing, because if you don't dry the wood and if you don't stack it properly, if you're on unlevel ground or if you don't strap it properly,
yeah,
if that wood starts to move on you throughout the drying process, you end up with a whole stack of twisted slabs.
Yeah,
and if you didn't cut them thick enough to where you can surface them and be left with a usable thickness of wood, there's that whole stack is no longer usable for big projects, and the value goes way down.
So what do you do? So when you're putting them into the kiln, so I got a piece of wood, I'm putting it in the kiln. I'm making sure it's sitting on its own. It's got like spacers in between the ones above it and below it. Do you have them secured somehow so that they won't move, or is it just a hope that, like you were saying, you cut them thick enough so that you can recut them again
exactly
when they're dry?
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
So any drying process, I guess, of anything, there's a lot of shrinkage and movage. So everything is going to move a little bit.
Yeah.
Depending on what part of the log it comes from, they're going to bow or cup one way or the other, regardless. So you always got to cut, with that in mind, so that once they've dried, you can create a usable slab out of them once you start to take the any of the twisting out of them.
Right.
So we do stack pretty high, right? So we'll tend to put the bigger, longer slabs and wider slabs at the bottom, and just keep stacking weight on top of them, just to have a little bit of pressure on them.
So that helps.
Yeah, so it helps. And then, stickering them to the edges, and you really...
Stickering them, what is that?
That's those little slats between
Just little slats between them?
Yeah.
Okay.
Just taking, I have a pretty strict protocol about how I dry the wood. And then...
So it's literally just another piece of wood, square piece of wood you stick in 100%. There to make the spacer type thing.
Yeah. And then, keeping them all even is key, like to have them all the same thickness so that you don't get, different variances in the longer pieces of wood. You don't want them to be half-inch higher on one side, and
right, because the one sticker was shorter than the other one.
Exactly.
So it's got an angle to it when it dries. Yeah, okay.
Yeah. And then strapping them with big heavy duty ratchet straps and stuff, just to keep that pressure tight, and then going back throughout the year, keeping those straps tight, and checking on the drying process, just
so
see how everything's
how much
going.
Does that speed things up, the solar kiln?
It speeds it up quite a bit. We actually are pretty lucky here in Alberta because we have a pretty dry climate.
Yeah.
Like out east and even out west, it's quite moist. So I don't think they've really had to focus more on like DH kilns and stuff like that to speed that process up.
Yeah.
But here we have, I think I don't know if our ambient, I can't say for sure what our ambient moisture is here, but it varies throughout the year. But
yeah,
the solar kilns definitely speed it up. Something that should take, they say on average about 1 inch a year for air drying wood, and then I definitely speed that up using my solar kiln methods.
So 1 inch thickness.
Yeah.
So like an 1 inch thick board that'll take a year if you're air drying it.
Totally.
Okay.
Yeah.
And it turns it into what? How long with the solar kiln?
It really depends on the species and the density of the wood and stuff like that. But sometimes I'm pulling out 3.5 inch hardwoods.
Yeah.
Out about 1.5 years in a solar kiln with good air circulation, and these are kilns that'll reach up to 45 degrees in the summer.
Yeah.
I've really set them up to really attract that sun, and I've kind of used a few methods to boost that temperature up a little bit.
Nice. That makes sense. Do you have you must have fans or something like that blowing through there too?
Exactly.
To keep the airflow.
Yeah, airflow is pretty key there.
Yeah.
Drying the wood.
Yeah.
So and then trial and error too, right? Like some of my first designs, weren't the best, but over the years you just kind of modify what you're doing and create new systems. And
and this is still young. You said it's only a 4-year-old, right? This business, so you're still learning and still. But I mean, some of the pieces you got in here are incredible. I mean, you got what's that one over there too? That big 4.5 foot wide chunk at the corner.
Yeah, that's a huge Northwest poplar here.
Right.
We got it right out of the river bend. It's massive trees. Like we've got almost 6 foot wide trees out of the city here.
Yeah. It doesn't make it seems unlikely, right? But I guess when you start really looking at them and getting close, you're like, oh yeah, I guess there is. I mean, that's not common, but they are there.
They are there.
Yeah.
You know, and people don't think they are, but you just start driving around, pay attention to these boulevard trees, you know?
Oh yeah.
Some of these boulevard trees are massive piece of wood, and then think about the ones in the backyards that you're not seeing.
Yeah.
You know, the big poplars and willow trees that have just gotten incredible little microclimates and water, and they just grow like weeds.
Oh, that's crazy how fast they grow. It's absolutely insane.
Yeah.
So how much like new inventory are you getting? Like how I'm just curious as to how many people do you think are trimming or cutting down their trees? Like what rate do you think they're coming down in the city for? I mean, you can't speak to the city. You can speak to the
residential
side. Yeah.
I mean, Edmonton has a lot of greenery. We have a lot of trees.
Yeah.
So I can't say for certain how many trees are coming out. Mm-hmm. I do my best to source as much as I can, you know, with the capacity that I have to pick them up.
Yeah.
And you know, I'm pretty steady. I can haul pretty much steady every day. Haul trees out of the city. You know, sometimes I'm doing 3-4 trips a day.
Yeah.
With you know, multiple trees on the trucks, and then, you know, windstorms come and stuff like that, and you're really, you know that changes, right? More environmental stuff comes in play, and then people are scared, and then more trees come down. So I don't know how many trees are coming down, but there's a good amount of trees.
There's a lot, though. It's pretty high. Yeah, especially because like the age of this city, right? Like you got a lot of old residents, right? Like 100 years or more. So like, they got some like massive trees, right? So it's like even my home is 1945, and I've got, like I said, I got a big blue spruce in the backyard, and then my neighbor's got a maple. Same thing, like it's mature. I think he actually took it down already. And then right in front, the boulevard trees, right? They got these massive 20-meter tall elms that are just the same thing. They're like 50 years old, but they're growing like crazy, right?
Yeah.
And they just had they reached their tipping point. They got to come down for whatever reason, right? So it's just fascinating to me that this is such a new thing, right? Like just the use of wood. Like I do a lot of talking with people about like just sustainability in general, just sustainable living type stuff, right? And just using your waste and all that kind of stuff. And like this is a perfect example of something that's been just kind of thrown away, that's got so much value for a million different things, and like the artistic value is just one.
Yeah.
Right. So it's just fascinating to see that you've broken through that market and actually like managed to make a successful business out of it. I'm surprised. I'm sure you'll have some copycats soon.
Yeah.
Some competition, but like as for now, it's like it's really, really cool. I love it.
You know, and in other cities around the country, it hasn't been like that, right? It's a pretty common thing out west and out east.
Yeah.
You know, where the trees are a little bit bigger out there, right? And they have more timber value. So even like for the bigger mills and stuff, the marketable timber value for the big cedars and firs in people's backyards, say in the Lower Mainland, or you know, the walnut trees and stuff that people have in their yards out east.
Yeah.
But in Edmonton, I guess it's been overlooked. You know, I didn't really blame it on anything other than this kind of oil field mentality here, right? That's kind of my thought on it. Is everybody's just chasing the dollar? They're working. I don't know if they're just. And then, you know, we have a lot of poplar trees and stuff like that, and you know, people think of some of these woods and they're like, oh yeah, there's no poplar's no good wood. Like we burn that. And then we go and we buy maple slabs from Windsor Plywood or something like that. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So it's just, you know, seeing an opportunity and capitalizing on, you know, even my own dreams of what I wanted to do, and then, you know, just taking action after that. And
yeah. Well, I love seeing people that are doing that though, right? Like figuring out what it is they want to do and just going for it, right?
Yeah.
Like, you're only going to get better.
Exactly.
Right? Even from not just from a business standpoint, but an artistic standpoint, right? Like it's only your eye's only going to get better for cutting these slabs, and like everything's only going to get better and more artistic and more valuable over time. Yeah. And it's just, it's exciting. It's just exciting to see somebody like yourself doing this kind of stuff. And you're even saying that like when you get a piece of wood, it's not just, okay, I can make 4 slabs out of that. You're eyeballing it to see where the most character, where the most value is going to come from that piece, right?
Exactly.
Not that you have lots of waste, you said, but you try to maximize the artistic value of that, right?
Yeah, exactly. And keeping the integrity of the art of the wood, right? And all the little, you wouldn't even call them imperfections, but all the beautiful little knots and character of those trees, that is really the art, really the selling feature. Preserving the live edge really beautifully and doing our best to like debark the pieces that need the bark come off, and just really trying to work with a creative mindset, rather than just slicing them up into boards.
Well, that's just it, right? Like exactly what you said, imperfections, right? Like if you were to talk to a mill, they go, shit, like all this stuff is all garbage. Everything you got in here, they just call it garbage, right? Like this is useless. I can't turn this into anything, right?
Yeah.
But meanwhile, you're right. It's the most beautiful piece of wood.
Yeah.
The structural integrity, as far as like building the house, look, maybe not, but like as far as like being a table or being a mantelpiece or being like you've got a bunch of just a carved out wood pieces on the shelf here. And yeah, it's just looking at a live edge. I think there's a higher value for that than just the straight up timber, right? So it's interesting to see that from different perspectives. You've got somebody looking at it from a completely different way, thinking that this is all garbage, whereas you look at what they've got and you're like, well, I don't want that. I want the crazy old knotted up burly shit that nobody else wants, right?
Yeah.
So yeah, that's where the value lies, I think.
Uglier on the outside is more beautiful on the inside.
Yeah.
It truly is. If it looks like crap on the outside, it's going to be beautiful on the inside.
Yeah, you look for stuff that's got like you said, you had the one in here that's lightning struck, right?
Yeah.
What was that again? What species was that?
Green ash.
Green ash, right?
Yeah.
And that was in the city that was struck.
Yeah.
Was it a boulevard tree?
No, it was a backyard tree.
Okay.
And it was, I can't remember the age exactly on it, but it was in the 60-year-old or so.
Yeah.
But it was actually kind of unique because once I got the tree, I picked it up and the top there was a bunch of fractured wood on it and stuff. But the salvageable parts of the tree we brought home and milled. And actually, once I started milling it, the whole inside of the tree was full of nails.
Oh.
There was one row where I think I hit 9 nails in a row, literally like every 3 inches there was another nail. And these are big 3.5-inch spikes. So destroy the saw blade after the first nail or two.
Jesus.
And then it starts, waving and stuff like that. And I really, some of that tree I actually didn't even keep cutting because it had so many nails in it.
Right.
But I was wondering if that might have had a reason for the lightning strike, having that iron in there, attracting the lightning.
That's a good question.
For some reason.
I wish I had an answer for you. I have no idea. Like, it might be, though. Like, I think... Yeah, I don't know. I'm definitely not a climatologist or whatever, meteorologist. I don't know my weather patterns all that well or why lightning strikes when it does. My understanding is that they still don't think that lightning should be possible.
Okay, yeah. So there's probably no answer for it.
Yeah, I'm sure somebody could probably answer your question, but you're right. If it's like chock full of metal, then you certainly think that would be more conductive and more attractive to lightning, as if it's alive and thinking. But you know what I mean? Like I don't know. That's a good question, though. But I wonder what the hell someone was doing with that tree, that they're stuffing nails in it or spikes in it every couple inches. Yeah,
I have no idea. And these nails were right on the inside of the tree, like from 30 years ago, or getting towards the center of the tree. So probably like some sort of tree fort or something. But by far, this tree had the most metal of any tree that I.
Oh, that's totally what it is. Now that I'm thinking about it,
I would think so.
When every fort I ever made as a kid is like, I did not understand like saving, nails. It was just like, put a piece up and put like 17 nails in one piece. I'm like, that's solid. I can stand on that. We're good. Like So like that's totally what a kid would do for sure. That's probably what it was.
Yeah,
that's funny. Like those getting those lightning pieces. Do you ever get pieces that are? When they're struck by lightning, they got the whole like the spiral crack all the way through kind of thing. You ever get anything like that?
Not so much,
because like you know what I mean, right? Because when lightning strikes a tree, it'll follow. So a lot of times you'll get this. It looks like somebody grabbed it from the top and peeled it around like a candy cane type thing, right?
Yeah, like I know the top of this tree had a bunch of that, but I think by the time I got there, most of that stuff was already chipped up.
Oh,
and, I pretty much just got. the big wood out of the tree. And, from what I could see, there's no visible evidence other than me personally knowing and, having kind of the background of the tree.
Yeah.
Otherwise, you can't really tell of the wood that I have of it that it was struck by lightning.
Oh, okay, yeah. It's just but it is cool to see those kind of differences, right?
Yeah.
What kind of havoc does those nails wreak on your saw though? Like, do you have to replace the whole blade then?
Yeah, pretty much. It throws your pitch off right away, and
because you have a bandsaw, you said,
yeah,
right?
bandsaw mill.
Okay.
So you'll get halfway through a beautiful slab, cutting out a nice valuable piece of wood, and you'll hit a nail, and it throws the pitch off of your blade. All of a sudden, your blade starts veering down or up,
right.
And you just start creating this wavy slab, and then
so it'll cut through the nail though.
Oh yeah, it'll cut through the nail. It doesn't cut through screws very good.
Oh really?
They're a lot harder.
Oh, nails. I guess they're a harder metal, I guess. Yeah.
So screws are actually worse, but it basically, hitting any sort of metal, it wrecks the pitch on your blade. If you get through that log, you're lucky. Sometimes we've had it, go down so far that it's creating so much tension and so much pressure on the sawmill itself that we just stop and we cut the blade because we don't want to bust anything just to get through that cut.
Yeah, no kidding. How often does that happen? I mean, how often does it happen that you run into nails?
I would say 40% of the mature trees that I'm getting have nails in them.
So it's a real problem. Then.
Oh, it's a thing.
So how do you go about dealing with that? You said you had a metal detector.
Yeah, so we do check the logs on the outside. I'd say most of them that we find on the outside we can take them out because they're previously put in like in the last however many years, and most of the times we can get them out.
Yeah.
It's the ones that we can't see or can't detect that give us the issues. The ones that are.
Can you get like a higher power metal detector?
You probably could, but the way I kind of look at it is, if it's just nails, it'll cut through them, and So I just kind of go with it, and it kind of goes with the story of the trees. It's the character that is attached to the tree, and there's a chance that I'll just take them risks anyway. Even if I know there's metal in there, I'll still cut, and hopefully, you still get a nice piece of wood out of the end. And
is there a market for wavy wood that's been cut?
Not
weird?
So much. No, and that's some of the stuff that falls into that category of wood that. Sometimes that's not really usable.
Yeah.
Not sellable. Just if it's too wavy, or if they can't run it through their planer.
Yeah.
Or deal with those nails even on a woodworking level.
Yeah.
But in a perfect situation, it'll slice through them, and then you change your blade after that cut and hope the next cut.
So it must be flying through the blades then.
Sometimes, and it can get a little bit frustrating,
Yeah, I can imagine.
Once we have a pretty good sharpening system, so we do sharpen the blades, and we actually do set the teeth again on them. Okay. But once you hit too many nails and there's so many teeth wrecked, we basically just toss the blades out.
Yeah.
And move on to the next one.
Yeah. So that, I guess that's built into the cost.
Yeah, it is, and it's frustrating. Sometimes you go through 3-4 blades a log, even if if it's a really nice chunk of hardwood and you want to cut those slabs.
Yeah.
It's a risk,
Yeah. Do you go, so if you know there are nails in there, you're going to go a little slower? Would that help at all? Or not really?
Yeah, I guess if you know that you're coming up to one. Yeah. Yeah, every once in a while I've got through the nail and then back the blade out and change the blade out and go in with a fresh blade to finish the cut.
Yeah.
If it's a really key cut. But
I'll say that's important, right? Because, you've got this valuable piece of wood that you're going to sell for a few $100 or maybe $1,000, whatever.
Yeah.
And you don't want to screw it up just because of the stupid friggin' nail, right? I can imagine you probably want to mitigate that as much as possible, right?
Most definitely. And it's oftentimes in the biggest, most valuable trees too, right?
Of course, yeah. Because it's deep in the middle where you can't find this stupid thing. Yeah.
Yeah.
Friggin' kids making forts.
Totally.
Luckily, all the forts I made were in the middle of the boreal. I don't think anybody's trying to cut them down to make a table out of them. Yeah. That's awesome. So, what are some of the other major issues you run into with this type of work?
I guess what are the major issues? Probably I guess the biggest thing is just challenging is just trying to make it all work. You
Yeah.
know, putting the business part of things, how to figure out how to make it all happen and go through, you know, that 20% loss of the wood that I pick up and, you know, not getting paid for any of this work.
Yeah.
I'm trying to figure out how to turn this stuff into a marketable product.
Yeah.
You know, over the process of you know, that year and a half to 2 or 3 years, you know, and try to make it all work. That's been my biggest challenge is like how to the business end of things.
Me too.
Yeah.
Figuring out how to get your stuff out there and all that kind of stuff is just like how do you go about marketing this stuff? Like how do you get the word out?
So I mean, I've been pretty lucky, I guess, because I guess doing networking in the city through different, you know, woodworking groups and then also in the design community and stuff like that. I've definitely put my time in to do some networking and create some, you know, pretty solid contacts.
Yeah.
The other is, I guess, just marketing's not my strong suit, and I just hired a marketing guy. So
smart.
Yeah. So hopefully you see more of Relic Woodworks out there online or, you know, on social media and stuff. Because, you know, we can only do so much as individuals.
Yeah. We
got to get people involved who, you know, are experts at their own field there. So
for sure. Yeah. No, it's always the business side of it, eh? Just the shit you don't want to do, you have to do. You're obligated to do just to make it happen, make your dream stay alive.
Yeah, and it's part of the journey, you know. You know, growing to rate growth, and you know, we're all doers, right? Like I'm a doer, I can do all day long, but it's the stuff that it's the more technical stuff, computer work, and stuff that I don't have the best, you know, knowledge in is the most challenging. So it's finding the methods to keep stuff moving forward and utilizing other people's and other people's skills, and then just learning and growing from that as well, and getting a little bit of that knowledge yourself as well is pretty important.
Yeah, no kidding. Yeah. So what is it? What do you love the most about doing this type of stuff?
I love my job.
Yeah.
I'm following my dream. Probably one of the most gratifying things. Well, there's a couple. One is bringing old trees new life. Some of these big, beautiful trees that are so beautiful. Bringing them new life. They're going to live on for, you know, potentially hundreds of years as finished products.
Yeah.
So that's one of the most amazing things. And then the other is actually the hundreds and hundreds of pieces that I have all over the city and even Canada for that matter, that the hundreds of pieces of wood that people have made the most incredible art out of.
Yeah.
And when they send me photos of their finished products or some of the products that I've finished, it's just very gratifying to know that there's all this sustainably salvaged lumber that I've helped create, you know, or that I've, you know, supplied these people, and they've created art with it and beautiful tables and, you know, mantelpieces or whatever it is, all over. And then the stories that attach with those. A lot of the big trees, well, we actually try to save the stories of all our big mature trees. So we know what part of the city it came from. You know, a lot of times we actually get the history of when it was planted, who planted it, and those nails 30 years ago that the kids were building their forts with. And we incorporate those stories right down to the slabs a lot of times. So it's pretty neat just to inspire people and keep the stories going and, you know, preserve the energy of these trees.
Yeah. No, it is. It is. It's, I appreciate that there's someone like you out here doing this kind of stuff because, otherwise it just goes to waste, right? What's the point of just burning it or chipping it or whatever when you can turn it into something as beautiful as whatever, right? Like there's, it just by itself, like I was saying, there's enough pieces in here alone that I would like to have just not even finished, just raw, cut the way you have them, just like stick them up on the mantle and be like, yeah, that's pretty sweet, eh? Like it tells a story in itself. Like some of the grains and some of the burls that have all these stickies sticking out of them, right? They look gnarly and they got all this character. It's just, it has a story all to its own, right? And it's, I think there's probably a huge plus to that, to trying to figure out what that story is, right? Because people tend to want to understand that kind of stuff.
Yeah, exactly. It's not just another chunk of wood off the shelf at a department store.
Yeah, no, for sure. No, it's pretty unique, man. This is awesome. Yeah, I wish you the best of luck.
Yeah, thanks.
I might have to buy a podcast table from you sometime.
Well, I can hook you up for sure.
Yeah, this is pretty sweet. If people want to like get in contact with you or want like they want to do business with you one way or the other, how would they get contact with you?
Well, you can find me online at relicwoodworks.ca.
Okay.
So that's our website, and we have our contact information through there. You can also follow us on social media, Instagram at relic_woodworks, and also on Facebook, Relic Woodworks.
There you go. Same kind of stuff I got going on. It's just exhausting doing social media, though. Hey, like I can't get over it. I gotta hire somebody.
I know. And then we do have a showroom downtown. So we have a show space downtown where we have, probably upwards of 150 pieces of wood.
That's where we're sitting. Right?
Yeah,
that's
exactly.
what this is. 100%. You don't have another one's hidden somewhere else?
No. So this is just kind of a small example of what we have. Good example of each species, and then different varieties and sizes of wood. And
I didn't even notice that birch over there. Actually,
yeah,
the bark's still on and everything.
Yeah. I think we got close to 14 species in here. And
most of them from Edmonton, you said, and then some from the coast and stuff.
Yeah, Lower Mainland. We got a little bit of walnut from down east here, but it's mostly in this shop here. It's stuff that we've got right out of Edmonton here.
Yeah, it's pretty awesome stuff. No, I definitely advise anybody that wants some live edge wood to come check this place out, because it's and like you said, you have contacts that you can hook them up with as far as carpenters and stuff like that to turn it in whatever they want it turned into, right?
Yeah, exactly. Wood artisans who are doing beautiful, slab tables and that sort of thing. Mm-hmm. And then also our price point's really reasonable compared to other places. Just the methods that I use, I keep my overhead low so that I can actually provide a reasonably priced product. Where a lot of times, if you go to some of the other places and you see the price of slabs, people don't even think about it, because who can afford $3,000 or $4,000 for a chunk of wood?
Yeah, it's insane. It really is. Like, unless you're buying it from like Thailand or something like that, right? And it's like some pirated wood shipped over on a container ship. Like, it's going to cost so much money. It's insane. Like, my parents have a piece of live edge in their house. I don't know how much they paid for it, but I remember when they told me the number, I kind of gasped.
Yeah. And see, that's not a sustainable, resource either, right? We're, bringing the stuff in from the South American rainforests or, the West Coast rainforests. And, we should be thinking about how we can preserve our forests and how we can utilize, or manage them better, I guess. I guess I shouldn't speak too much on that, but
I can speak to it, so you go ahead and I'll tell you where you're wrong or right.
Yeah. I guess our forests are a key part, like the ecosystem and just planet Earth. We need the forest to, that's the cycle of life, right? As in our Western society, we use a lot of wood, we use a lot of timber products, and we've demolished a lot of forests that, from what I can see, don't come back. The native habitat, the old growth forests and stuff like that, I don't know. I'm a bit of a tree hugger, and I love trees. So it breaks my heart to know that we devastate so much forest, and that there's so much natural habitat that's lost, and like all the way down to the forest floor that doesn't come back. Like in the West Coast, in the old growth rainforest, how they've cut down all those massive trees that were 1,000-2,000 years old. And I've heard now, and correct me if I'm wrong, but they're saying now that even the forest won't sustain those old trees anymore, because those old growth trees aren't falling and breaking down on the forest floor. So there's not enough nutrients now to keep creating old growth trees.
I'm not sure about that. I mean, I can tell you for sure, definitely that. I mean, it's easy to look at like a cut block or something like that, right? And assume that it's like a problem, right? And like, surprisingly, like you've never looked into this, so I don't expect you to know. But surprisingly enough, like those are, strangely, it's hard to explain to people, but they are sustainable, right? They are. The whole idea is that like for a long time we've suppressed fire for our own, to protect our homes and infrastructure and stuff like that, right? And as a result, we've had less fire in the landscape, right? And so kind of what the current forestry strategy is trying to replicate fire. So which is why you see lots of big cup blocks now, right? Because they're trying to, and they're not squares anymore. They kind of follow like the river, or they follow some kind of natural feature, right?
Okay.
And the idea is to replicate fire, to try and replace that, because I mean, the truth of the matter is that the forest is cyclic, right? Like it grows up, it dies, and it regrows, right? Like it's not, we don't have 1,000-year-old trees really in Alberta, right? We've got, the average age is roughly 100 or something, right? So yeah, like there's always room to get better though.
Yeah.
Like as a forest industry, I think we do a really, really good job of making sure that everything's coming back the way it should, and that you're getting the same species coming back that you cut down, and that you're providing habitat. And it changes though. You're right. Like you're not wrong in saying that there's the habitat changes. Absolutely. Because like obviously if you have a 200-year-old or a 100-year-old stand and you remove the wood fiber, you're totally changing the habitat. Yep. Obviously there's not going to be the same species of like insects and birds and stuff that were in there before. But that's the natural cycle, right? Now you're going to get a totally different mosaic of species of whatever it is coming back, right? So it's that's part of the reason of like even this podcast really actually was to try and educate people on really the conservation value and the actual sustainability of the forest industry in the province, right? Yeah. And I mean there's been bad practices in the past, definitely, right? There's a lot of stuff in the past that's been I wouldn't say they would say they were ill-informed type of thing, right? Like they thought they were doing the right thing, and it turned out it wasn't the right thing, and like now we're learning through science and stuff. But yeah, it's still though, it's definitely a sustainable industry that tries to, I think there's always moving forward. That's the whole point of this podcast even, was to try and get that science out there and try and help people make those ethical decisions around stuff, right? Around like protecting watersheds and erosion and habitat and all kinds of stuff. But it is tough for us because I think the big problem is we see the area we used to hike through, right? And now it's cup block, right? And they go, well, shit, like this is they destroyed all the habitat. There's no berries here anymore. There's no, like, I don't see the woodpeckers. I don't see any of this stuff that I used to love to see. They ruined it. It's devastated. It's gone, right? And it's like, well, no, the truth of the matter is that was an old growth forest that was actually declining, was releasing more carbon than it was absorbing, and it's actually going to go downhill. And the actual truth of the matter is the benefit would be that in reality that would burn. So instead of burning and releasing that carbon back up into the atmosphere, we're actually taking it and doing like what you're doing, right? You turn it into a carbon storage or build a house or whatever, right? But that being said, it's like I'm a big advocate of sustainable forest management, but there are places in the world where you're absolutely right, and they are just devastating forests and are destroying habitat and are, you know what I mean, that is happening. But even then, the hard part there is that it's not, people think that it's big companies doing it, right? And often it isn't. Often it's the farmer who's just trying to make ends meet, and he needs to clear this land so he can grow crop and feed his family, right? Or sell the wood so he can feed his family. And it's such a complicated situation. But I think with like social media and that kind of stuff, we starting to see people understand. They're looking for the answers, right? Because it's so easy to see something like a cup lock and go, oh, it's gone. Yeah. Right. Like that's, but it's a complicated process, and it's definitely, like, at least here in Canada, I can speak for that. I can't speak for the rest of the world. I can speak that in Canada for sure, it's world-class sustainable forest management, right? But it's hard for us as these like little specks on the radar to see, you know what I mean? In our lifetime, that forest isn't going to be back to what it was, right? Yeah. But there's other places that will be, right? That's the challenge that I have all the time, man, is trying to explain to people that this is a sustainable thing, and I don't know how to do it. It's so weird.
Sometimes it's hard to see, I think, and it's also good that you're educating people as well. It's hard to see on an individual level, people who don't have the background, because at the end of the day, we all live in wooden houses, you know?
Yeah.
And we all drive cars that burn gas, you know, these industries that we can hate on. You know, we're the we're part of the cause of that as well, right?
Mm-hmm.
So, it is one thing. We're very fortunate in Canada that we still have all these big forests.
Well, that's just it. And I think, like realistically, and you know this, like wood is truly one of the only truly sustainable resources we have for building material, right? Like even people say, well, hemp is the next thing, right? It's going to save us. And it's like, well, that's more agriculture though, right? It's not sustainable. It's not self-sustaining in that sense, right? You need to add, nitrogen. You need to add things to the soil to keep it going, right? Whereas forestry done right, sustainable forestry, you still have lots of leaf litter hitting the ground, branches, you know what I mean? Because trees self-prune, right? So you have branches and leaf litter and all kinds of stuff hitting the ground. Roots die out, that provides more nutrients to the soil. So you still have a lot of nutrient cycling still happening, right? But there is an argument to be made there that like if this, so the difference between fire and cut blocks is that fire takes out the small stuff, leaves the big stuff, and cut blocks do the opposite, right? So it's I don't know exactly where the balance lies as far as nutrient cycling and if it's the same or more or less.
Yeah.
But I know that it's good. And I know that at least in Canada we're not seeing negative impacts of there being less, nutrients in the soils and stuff like that. But it is truly one of the only sustainable resources we have. Mm-hmm. I'm pro using more wood as much as we can because we've figured out a way to do it sustainably. But in order to do that, we have to educate the public and explain to them that you should use more wood. I mean, we're getting away from plastic straws now, right? You go to Rostazato is just a couple blocks away here, and they have wood or paper straws, just like wax coated, right? And I'm like, yeah, that's perfect. But then I was with somebody the other day who said, oh, now they're just using trees up for this. And I said, well, what would you rather? Plastic that doesn't decompose and that comes from an oil product that is basically it's not sustainable in any way, shape, or form. It's a single use and it's done.
Yeah.
Or something that's sustainable that can go back to the soil and grow back and become something else, right? And it's but it's hard people don't have time to think about all this shit. Like it's just so much, right?
Yeah.
It's never ending.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's I go off on tangents all the time.
No, that's awesome. And I appreciate that info too, right? Because even me, not doing a lot of research into it, I love trees, and it, I'm an outdoorsman my whole life, and I hunt the West Country lots, and some of the areas have been just devastated by cut blocks. The areas that I've hunted when I was younger, and it does also create habitat for wildlife to come back once the new green starts coming up and stuff like that. But it does change the landscape. So it's easy for us to hate on that. But at the end of the day, if you guys, figured out that, how to sustainably, use the wood and, we definitely have an abundance of forests. That's for sure.
Well, yeah. And like a good example actually is British Columbia right now, right? The last couple of years, it's been burning like stink. I mean, luckily today was one of the first days in 10 days that we can see more than a couple hundred yards, right? Because of all the smoke from over there. So arguably part of the reason that that's all happening, right, is of course, I can't say for certain, but from a lot of professionals I've been told is that we have more old growth forests now than ever existed on the landscape. There's an argument to be made there. I'm not saying that's the end all be all, but there's an argument to be made that there's more old growth than has ever existed. And that's because of fire suppression and whatnot. And then also we had the pine beetle epidemic that came through, right? So we have a lot of dead standing timber in the interior BC. And that created this powder keg of problems, right? But it's like you said, there's something about that young forest that just isn't as pretty as the old forest, right? And we want that. People tend to think of the forest as this natural, wild, pristine thing that people weren't a part of, right? But the truth of the matter is that Indigenous people, First Nations people, have been here since glaciation, right? For 10,000 years or more, and they've been managing the whole land for that whole time. Mm-hmm. They came across with fire, and they have proof of them burning willow land for moose hunting and stuff. So this is an interesting. Actually, this came up on a podcast a little while ago. A guy came up and he was telling about if you burn willow, there's something, I can't remember what the mineral was. There's a mineral in the bark that moose want, but it's not bioavailable in raw bark. so they don't ever go for it. But as soon as it burns, there's something in it. The moose smell it, and they're there 2 hours after it burned, munching on it. To try
wow.
apparently, yeah. So apparently a lot of the First Nations populations, they would actually burn willow areas, and they'd sit there and they'd hunt for moose there, and like stuff like that. But they were really, really good at burning areas and making sure that was like it stayed a plain for the bison, or it stayed, or whatever, right? They did manage it, right?
Yeah, 100%.
And but yeah, it's such a infinitely long conversation to try and explain to somebody how dynamic the forest is, and how old growth is one of those things that it's a part of it, right? It should be, I don't know what the number, we'll say 20% of the forest should be old growth, but the other 80% should be a staggering amount of that, right? So like 20, let's just make it super simple. 20% should be like new, 20 years old. The next 20% should be, 20 to 40, and so on and so on, right? But it needs to maintain that variability to maintain all of the species that we have, right? So it's like, because old growth is great, but it's not great for everything, right? So it's it's a fascinating conversation. Like I said, this whole podcast is about that. So I literally have 44 episodes now.
That's awesome.
About that. So it's like,
Good for you.
but it's a crazy situation to try and get across. But I think something like this that can, again, you can bring more appreciation for wood, right, with this into the urban environment, where I think people kind of have lost that. You know what I mean? They're hustling, they're trying to be successful and stuff, and they're not really thinking about the beauty and the impact of the trees in their backyard that could be turned into whatever, right? So it's I have nothing but support for what it is you do here. Like it's really, really cool.
Thank you. Appreciate that.
Yeah, it's awesome stuff. You got any final thoughts you want to throw down?
I guess final thought would be just my appreciation of trees. And I love trees. I think that they're amazing what they provide for the planet and for us as individuals, and especially these urban trees that we're growing up with them in our backyards and our boulevard trees. It creates something special in these urban environments, and they have a positive impact on people to levels that I don't think we can understand.
I agree.
And I say respect to trees, and look at them with a different light. They're beautiful, and their energy. They have amazing energy in them, and I'm very pleased to be doing what I'm doing, and to help preserve the ones that are coming down, and allow them the energy and the stories of these trees to live on. Yeah,
no, it's awesome. I love it. Yeah, I'm also a tree lover, and it's hard for people to hear that, right? They're like, how can you be a tree lover when you're cutting them down and you're making stuff out of them, and you're like, well, that's part of it. What are you talking about? Like, they live and die just like everything, right? That's the cycle of life, right? It's all cyclic. So, no, I love it. It's awesome, man. This is great. It's perfect. And now we got your details out there, so hopefully you'll get an influx of people. Not that I have that many people listening, but
awesome. Well, I appreciate you taking the time to find me and come down and chat with me. It's been a pleasure to meet you, and I look forward to getting to know you more. And
oh yeah, I'm sure we'll be seeing more of each other for sure. Yeah. It's awesome. I also appreciate you coming on. This has been great.
Yeah, 100%.
Yeah, I think this is a unique conversation and you have a unique situation here that I think I haven't really captured yet. And I don't think a lot of people have heard. So this is perfect.
Yeah.
Yeah. Thanks a lot, man.
Awesome. Thank you.
Sweet.